Thank you for joining us today. We will now begin our session on pushing educational boundaries, student recommendations for spending American Rescue Plan funds.
Before we begin today, we wanted to make sure everyone is familiar and comfortable with using Zoom. You can see in the bottom left-hand corner of the attendee control panel where it says audio settings and audio options. Depending on how you joined, you can switch between two options, either computer audio or telephone audio. Towards the center of the control panel, you can also see the chat icon, which you can use to enter any messages if you have a comment or question. You also want to notice that in the menu, when you're sending a message, you can either send to all panelists or all panelists and attendees if you want everyone to view your message. If you have any technical issues, please feel free to chat and communicate with us. And we will also be posting in the chat area links to resources throughout the presentation. Towards the end of the webinar, we will also be asking for feedback via a survey. That survey will automatically open in your browser after the event closes once we send the link in the chat. We also want to go over the recording policy for today's event. The American Institutes for Research allows for the recording of audio, visuals, participants, and other information sent, verbalized, or utilized during business-related meetings. By joining a meeting, you automatically consent to such recordings. Any participant who prefers to participate via audio only should disable their video camera so only their audio will be captured. Video and/or audio recordings of any AIR session shall not be transmitted to an external third party without the permission of AIR. So now I'll turn it back to Alicia.
Our agenda for today, we will be talking very briefly about the Region 9 Comprehensive Center. We'll share our objectives for today. We will then pass it off to our featured guests, our students, who will talk a little bit about the Student Advisory Council. They will share their research and information around post-COVID-19 achievement gap, student safety and emotional well-being, diversity, equity, and inclusion. At about 11 o'clock, we'll open up for Q&A. And then at 11:20, we'll go ahead and close out this session. Thanks again for joining us. At this point, I'd like to hand it off to Aaron Butler, our Director of the Region 9 Comprehensive Center.
Thank you, Alicia, and thank you everyone for joining us today. We really appreciate it. We know that you have many options to spend your time, and we are honored that you chose to spend this hour and a half with us this morning. We're looking forward to a really exciting webinar to share what this dynamic group of students has to share. I also want to thank our Region 9 Comprehensive Center team for putting this together. There's a lot of hours, a lot of meetings behind the scenes, working together to put this together, and they're really excited for it. And also want to thank our partners at the Illinois State Board of Education and the Illinois Student Advisory Council, who've just been a pleasure to work with, and it's been so great to get to know them. So you may be asking, for those of you who aren't familiar with the Comprehensive Center network, what is the Region 9 Comprehensive Center? Well, we're operated through a grant from the U.S. Department of Education, and we provide free capacity building technical assistance to state departments of education, districts, and schools in Illinois and Iowa. And we are focused on three main areas with our support, and it's supporting key education priorities, it's connecting our partners with expertise and evidence-based resources, and it's also elevating success stories from across the region, similar to what we're trying to do today. Region 9 is also part of a larger Comprehensive Center network that covers all 50 states and U.S. territories. And also there's a National Comprehensive Center. And we'll share a link to those websites a little later. But I do encourage you at the end of today's session, if you like what you hear or interested in more, please visit our website, region9cc.org. We have monthly blogs, our blog library that we encourage you to check out for a lot of great content, evidence-based resources, and great current event thinking over the past year. And also sign up for our monthly newsletter that we send out every month with a lot of great content. And so just encourage you to stay engaged with us, connect with us, and learn more about us. So with that, I'll turn it over to Alicia, and we can get to the main event today.
Thank you, Erin. So our objectives for today, you will hear recommendations to help all students achieve educational success. You will gain ideas on how to incorporate student voice into decision-making, particularly for the use of ESSER funds, and identify areas for impactful education spending. At this point, I'd like to welcome and introduce Molly Yui, who will share an overview of the Student Advisory Council at the Illinois State Board of Education.
Thank you, Alicia. Yes, my name is Molly Yui Edmonds, and I am the Director of Student Care at the Illinois State Board of Education. With this role, I have the privilege of working with these students that represent the Student Advisory Council. And if you wouldn't mind, next slide, please. Our Student Advisory Council is made up of 21 students from around the state. There is a selection process. We have an average of about 300 students who apply to be a part of the Student Advisory Council each year. We want to ensure that not only our Student Advisory Council is geographically diverse, but also that the students accurately depict the children we serve in Illinois public schools. And these students are able to provide their perspectives and concerns on the state's educational policies. This year, the 4 main focus areas that these students researched and provided recommendations to not only our board, but to several legislators throughout the state of Illinois. The 4 areas were to develop ways to respond to the post-COVID-19 achievement gaps. They created a diversity, equity, and inclusion framework. They ensured safety and emotional well-being of students were provided, recommendations were provided to help school districts make sure students were safe, and also address the teacher shortage and rethought recruitment. Now, I will let you know that the addressing the teacher shortage and rethinking recruitment, we will not be providing those recommendations today, but the other 3, you will hear the students' perspectives and recommendations on those subgroups. I also want to let you know that all of the recommendations are tied to our Illinois State Board of Education 3-year strategic plan, which the students will talk about here in a moment. And our students not only met with our board at the Illinois State Board of Education, but also worked with key legislators throughout the state. And just to name a few, they met with former Governor Jim Edgar, Illinois Speaker of the House Chris Welch, Advance Illinois' Robin Staines, Senator Kimberly Lightford, and Representative Avery Bourne, just to name a few. But I will turn it over to the Student Advisory Council President, Caitlin Zoe. And just before we start, this is an amazing group of students, and I think you all will see the efforts that these students put into the presentation today. So thank you all for joining. Caitlin.
Great. Thank you. Hello, my name is Caitlin Zoe, and I'm the president of the 2020-2021 Student Advisory Council. Thank you so much for joining us today and listening to Student Voices. So the ISB Strategic Plan is a roadmap for Illinois public schools through school year 2022 to 2023. The strategic plan is designed with all of you, your students, and the future of our state in mind. It defines the step Illinois will take to provide each and every student in our state with safe and engaging schools, excellent teachers, and equitable learning opportunities. This plan reflects both the realities and uncertainties we face today due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The pandemic has affected almost every aspect of education in Illinois. It is important that this plan is timely and reflects the changing world around us. This strategic plan was the foundation for our recommendation to the board. Each of our ideas is aligned with a strategic plan goal. Not only are our recommendations embedded with the strategic plan, but ESSER funding needs to be spent on these areas to ensure equity for all students in Illinois. Now I'll turn it over to Serena Tucker, who will now speak to the need for student voices in spending the ESSER funding.
Hi everyone, my name is Serena Tucker. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. I would like to start off this webinar with an excerpt from an article written by Mindful Practices, an organization working to build authentic social emotional learning experiences fueled by student voices. Quote, Did you know that 70% of lottery winners go bankrupt in 3 to 5 years after their big win? While you would think winners would use their newfound funds to get out of trouble, they often are swayed by the interests of others or invest in something new and shiny. What's more is that studies show that while the additional funds don't make an individual more successful, they often have a negative impact on health and happiness rather than a presumed positive one, end quote. Now, I know you all didn't technically win the lottery, but it's extremely important that you don't let your school districts fall victim to this lottery bust model. While building a new track and redesigning a school's football field are all great things, it's important to remember what the goal of a school is. Schools are built to serve students. Schools are built to educate students and prepare students to create a future for themselves where they will thrive. This means that it is your duty as superintendents whose job it is to serve students to listen to students. It is the student's decision on what to do with this lottery ticket, and it is your job to listen to their voices. I will now turn it over to Theo and Araha.
Thank you, Serena. My name is Araha and my pronouns are she, her, hers. I am an incoming senior at Schaumburg High School in District 211. I joined the SAC because I saw that students would be facing so many unprecedented challenges, especially as a result of this pandemic. Conversations with my peers and friends were both illuminating and concerning, and I wanted to do my part to act on those conversations and help address those challenges. For my time on the SAC, I am definitely most proud of our final recommendation to the ISBE, which you will be hearing today. It was the product of hours of research, discussion with experts, and the experiences of students, and I am thankful for the opportunity to help make a positive impact on students' lives. I will be returning to the SAC next year, and I hope to study economics and public policy in college.
Hi, I'm Theo. My pronouns are he, him, his. I just graduated from Urbana High School in Urbana, Illinois, and I'm planning to attend the University of Chicago next year to study philosophy and public policy. I'm hoping to go into careers in education and education policy, so I'm grateful for all that I've learned about the field during my time on the Student Advisory Council. I was interested to participate in the SAC because my school district has gone through a lot of administrative turmoil in the past few years, and I wanted to know what I could do to help make policies that would create a more equitable and safe situation for all students in my districts and districts throughout Illinois. I'm proud and grateful that my subgroup this year was able to talk to many high school students from across the state, from across the state in a virtual statewide convening, and to incorporate their views on tutoring into our recommendations to the Illinois State Board. Next slide, please.
Together with Chloe Goodman, Langston Span, and Nate Yeoman, who are not joining us today, we conducted research concerning the educational opportunity gaps caused by COVID-19, as well as creating policy recommendations. We'd like to start this presentation by asking you all how well you think your district does at providing all students with the resources to access as much tutoring as they need. It looks like a majority are fair and poor, which we think that this is a great opportunity to change that. And for those districts that are excellent and good, Theo and I also think that there are always ways to make tutoring more effective. And we hope that our presentation can help do that or help provide some ideas for your districts to do that. So we've based our ideas on the recommendations of national education leaders and research organizations, as well as on our own experiences as students, surveys we've sent to other students and teachers, and the experiences of students we spoke with at a virtual statewide convening. Our work is aligned with Strategic Goal 1 for every child to make academic gains and to address historic inequities. We want to thank our advisors, Dr. Leslie Ward and Molly Yui Edmonds, for all their help, and Dr. Elaine Allensworth for reviewing our finished presentation. The responses we've gathered from surveys have indicated that students feel isolated, have difficulty paying attention and staying motivated with online school, and feel disconnected from their teachers. Next slide, please. Guided by Strategic Goal 1, our main recommendation is statewide implementation of high-impact tutoring programs. A wide variety of tutoring programs, including local, inter-district, nationwide, in-person, online, volunteer, and paid professional programs, can make a significant impact on students' lives. Tutoring gives students both the individualized academic support they need in the face of differing obstacles and a chance for students to make connections with their peers and with older students that will improve their social and emotional well-being. The P20 Council Learning Renewal Resource Guide suggests that high-intensity tutoring can close the opportunity gap by up to 50% in tutored subjects. Students we spoke with, which included those who tutor and receive tutoring, emphasized the importance of the individual attention tutoring provides. We learned from students we spoke with that while some schools have abundant tutoring opportunities and willing volunteers, others have no such free programming. So the effectiveness of tutoring would be maximized if resources, including volunteer tutors, are targeted towards schools with less funding and fewer resources. While tutoring can be extraordinarily beneficial for students, it can also easily fail if not done correctly. For instance, research has suggested that the billions of dollars spent on tutoring as part of the No Child Left Behind Act had little impact due to inadequate methods of integrating tutoring into student learning. As the federal government seeks to build back better in the wake of the pandemic, Illinois schools are receiving federal money through ESSER funds. Next slide, please. ESSER 1 funds must be spent by September 30th, 2022. ESSER 2 funds must be spent by September 30th, 2023, and ESSER 3 funds must be spent by September 30th, 2024. In general, these funds can be used for purposes including addressing learning loss, implementing summer learning programs, addressing the needs of underrepresented student groups, and providing student mental health services. As you can see from our slide, $25 million have been allocated to high-impact tutoring from ESSER 2, while $12.5 million have been allocated from ESSER 3. Districts must find ways to spend this tutoring allocated money on tutoring programs that have been shown to be effective by research and by previous experience in American schools. Next slide, please. One suggestion to ensure funds are used effectively is that schools ensure tutoring is thoroughly integrated into the school day and that students are not missing instruction time. As stated by education researcher Dr. Elaine Allensworth, the key thing is that the tutoring has to be designed to help students succeed in their coursework, rather than being disconnected extra instruction that puts more demands on them. Tutoring could even become incorporated as its own class, including a grade on semester report cards. The Brookings Institution writes about one model of tutoring that has shown to be successful. Quote, it happens daily for a full class period during the normal school day, not after school when kids are desperate to head home, not once a week where lag time reduces progress, end quote. In terms of content as well, tutoring should be directly connected to what is being taught in the classroom, which requires clear coordination between tutors and the teachers they're supporting. In addition to being integrated into the school day, in-school tutoring should be high dose and take place in very small groups, with 1 or 2 students paired to a single tutor. Tutoring with 3 or more students has shown much less evidence of effectiveness. Additionally, districts should consider how they can destigmatize tutoring, as perceptions of tutoring as punishment makes its implementation more difficult. There is no one-size-fits-all solution for destigmatizing tutoring, but it's often beneficial for schools to target tutoring towards students of all academic levels rather than designing it only for those who are struggling. Some researchers recommend making tutoring mandatory for every student in order to decrease stigma, and while the solution may work for some schools, it should be considered with caution, given that it could harm students who don't want tutoring and waste resources on those who don't need it. One other idea that was put forward during our convening with students from across the state was of a more general and less structured tutoring program within schools. One student said that this program is referred to as the Cave in his school, a designated location that offers tutoring before, during, and after the school day for students to take advantage of at will. The student said there were at least 2 tutors present per subject. Another student told us that the availability of multiple teachers and/or student tutors per subject would make a big difference for her because the teacher she currently has to be tutored by in a certain subject has exhibited racist tendencies toward her and is generally not committed to her success. Within my high school, older student volunteers, in addition to teachers, tutor before and after the school day, as well as during lunch periods for students at all academic levels, AP as well as regular classes. While not mandatory, students are encouraged to attend a tutoring session when they'd like to remediate essays or tests. One challenge this model poses is that students who may need tutoring the most may not always take advantage of it. However, it is comparatively not as difficult to implement and incorporates peer tutoring.
Additionally, the website schoolhouse.world offers a very promising model of a virtual platform that can bring certified volunteer tutors from around the country to students who need them through free online outside of school sessions. Multiple states have endorsed schoolhouse.world, which was developed largely by education technology pioneer Sal Khan and former Federal Secretary of Education Arne Duncan. Despite the promise of this and many other online programs, it's also important to provide the option of in-person tutoring, as not all students have internet access outside of school, and some students learn better in person as opposed to over a video call. Of course, all varieties of tutoring programs need tutors. Tutors could include paid college graduates and/or high school students and college students volunteering their time. Peer tutoring opportunities, in which students tutor their classmates could provide student volunteers with the chance to explore teaching as a potential career path, which would aid in the state's ongoing efforts to recruit students into the educational field. Peer tutors could also gain more general volunteer experience, which is helpful for many students who are applying to college or who have required volunteer credit hours for graduation. The Pandemic Response and Opportunity Through National Service Act, legislation currently in the US Senate, is dedicated to the creation of a national tutoring corps to bring tutors from across the country to school districts that need them. If the federal government fails to pass this legislation, or if federal programs need to be supplemented by state action, we hope that Illinois and other states will work to implement similar programs. In addition to programs during the school year, we're recommending intensive summer programs to help struggling students catch up on work from the previous year. Research from the University of Chicago Consortium on School Research shows that learning time interventions like week-long acceleration academies can benefit students, and we recommend that intensive summer programs staffed by both highly effective teachers and tutors are implemented by districts. These programs should not be administrators are currently working to implement summer programs for this summer, and according to the Chicago Tribune, many are having a difficult time finding teachers and students who are willing to spend more time in school after such a difficult year. Where there are many ways schools can try to remedy a lack of enthusiasm for summer learning, one method we believe has promise is swapping traditional methods of summer school for the sort of shorter, more intensive programs founded on small group instruction that we just mentioned. According to the Annenberg Institute, programs which hired selected highly effective teachers to give tutoring instruction in a single subject to homogeneous ability groups of about 10 to 12 students succeeded in providing the equivalent of 3 months of student learning in a single week in certain cases. While there may still be much reluctance to signing up for these programs, week-long academies would give teachers and students more time during the summer to relax and recharge than would programs that last for multiple weeks. Our group also extended our focus to solutions to opportunity gaps other than tutoring. Another solution we researched was extending the school day or year, something we are not in favor of. Students we spoke with told us they are already mentally overwhelmed, and more time in the school day will leave less time for other enriching activities that keep students engaged. Also, the resources and investment needed to extend the school day would be used on all students, rather than the students struggling the most. Other potential solutions include for districts to buy new education technology, such as new devices or alternate learning software. We recommend that they do so only if they're reasonably sure this technology will be enthusiastically used by teachers, as typically such spending can be a major source of monetary waste. Finally, it is clear that the problems that schools face cannot be solved by schools alone. According to former Secretary of Education John King, some schools, particularly in lower income communities, are partnering with community-based health and mental health providers to bring those services to their students. Community partnerships and other school-supported programs to meet students' needs that can't be met by schools themselves are an essential facet of closing opportunity gaps. While all these various solutions and many others besides merit deep consideration, our main point in this presentation is to urge a focus on high-impact tutoring in the years ahead. As mentioned, $37.5 million total in ESSER funds have been allocated to high-impact tutoring. The P20 Council Learning Renewal Resource Guide estimates that high-intensity tutoring costs between $500 and $3,500 per student per year, and that 6-week summer programs cost between $500 and $700 per student per year. In order to maximize the impact of the funding that's been allocated, we urge that districts explore opportunities for both paid and volunteer tutors. As mentioned, promising tutoring programs like Schoolhouse.World have been run on a volunteer-based model, but we should certainly not preclude opportunities involving paid tutors. Tutoring can, in some cases, work well online, but there's also great promise for models of tutoring integrated into the in-person school day, like tutoring as a class during the day for which students receive a grade. There are a great variety of tutoring programs that can be helpful to closing the opportunity gaps in Illinois and across the country. And many more examples of successful tutoring programs than we list here can be found in the relevant section of the P20 Council Learning Renewal Resource Guide, among other sources. But it's also important to remember that not all tutoring programs are helpful. Tutoring can easily become ineffective, and it's for this reason that research at the school district level is required concerning how ESSER funds and other funding for high-impact tutoring can be most effectively utilized. Investing in this research and funding those tutoring models that have been shown to be most effective will pay great dividends for districts and their students. Thank you so much, and now I'm going to turn it over to Caitlin Zoe and Serena Tucker to talk about student safety and emotional well-being.
Great. Thank you, Theo. So hello again, my name's Caitlin Zoe. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm from Naperville, Illinois, and I graduated from Neuqua Valley High School in District 204. I will be attending Harvard University next fall, where I'll be concentrating in government and psychology. So I decided to join the Student Advisory Council since after knowing so many friends who have struggled with their mental health, I realized that schools need to stress the importance of it. Right now, my school has only one counselor for around every 300 students, and many of the students don't even know that social workers exist at school. Because of how little mental health has been stressed in my school, I decided to apply to this council because I wanted to bring awareness on mental health and come up with ideas to bring more resources to all schools in Illinois. My proudest accomplishment on this council is my group's final proposal. It is amazing to see students be able to participate in important decision-making, and I hope that these proposals can help schools nationally to improve their students and staff members.
Hi, everyone. As I said before, my name is Serena Tucker, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. This upcoming fall, I will be a senior at St. Charles East High School in St. Charles, Illinois, from District 303. My desire to be a part of the Student Advisory Council stemmed from the lack of student voice I saw in my own community, specifically in regards to mental health. I remember when I was a freshman, meeting with my counselor at the end of the school year to decide my sophomore year classes. As I presented to her the list of classes I wanted to take, she immediately began advising me to take this and that AP class and what to do in order to create an appealing transcript for colleges without any regards to the time and effort I would have to put into each class and how that wouldn't exactly fit into my slowly non-existent school life balance. It made me feel that I should be prioritizing the rigor of my classes and getting good grades before my own well-being, because what's most important is creating a transcript to impress colleges, right? Being a part of the Student Advisory Council has allowed me to use my voice and experiences to fight for the prioritization of students' well-being. My proudest moment on the council is today, as I am able to see how much mine and my peers' hard work has paid off, as our voices are now being heard across the country.
Next slide, please. So our main focus for our group is to ensure the safety and emotional well-being of students throughout the schools in Illinois. It is recommended that educators need to be required to be trained annually on how to recognize mental health indicators to help students cope with stress and trauma. It is also recommended that mental health professionals and support should be available to all students and faculty at school. So this recommendation relates to the Illinois State Board of Education Strategic Goal 2.1.1, which is to support schools to address the social and emotional need of students, educators, and staff impacted by COVID-19 by providing them with high-quality professional development. Next slide, please. So the UChicago Consortium on School Research Literature Review for Supporting Social, Emotional, and Academic Development explains how trauma and stress causes students to have increased difficulty engaging in classroom learning, consolidating memories, and paying sustained attention in the classroom. In addition, students internalizing behavior or externalizing disruptions are often misinterpreted as signs that students are unmotivated, don't care about their education, or lack respect for their teachers and peers. While educators might think that punishment will motivate students to change their behavior, it will increase the probability of acting out in the future. As shown in Chicago public schools, intentional efforts to reduce the use of suspension have brought about improvements in student safety, attendance, and test scores. So before I continue my presentation, we will do a polling question right now. So our polling question is, student superintendents in Illinois, were you aware of the REACH program prior to this meeting? All right, so most of the answers were not applicable. So I'm guessing not many of you are aware of the REACH program. So we hope to talk more about what it is and why it is an important resource for mental health in schools. So our group also had the privilege of speaking with those involved in the REACH program at Anne and Robert H. Leary's Children's Hospital of Chicago. The REACH program is a free virtual online training program to train educators about trauma and its impact on students. The program covers topics such as recognizing the common symptoms of trauma that occurs in students' school settings and outlining the core components of trauma-responsive schools. The feedback from educators from the REACH program has been extremely positive. One educator stated, "I've seen many students as well as myself experience serious trauma in their life. The more we can learn and help support each other, the better." So along with gathering research, we have met with various groups to gain different student perspectives regarding mental health across the state. We met with the Youth Advisory Board of Be Strong Families, which is a statewide student advisory representing foster care students in Illinois. They shared testimonials and ideas on ways to improve mental health in schools. We also used feedback and recommendations from the student convening held in March to further shape our recommendation to fit the needs of students in Illinois. Along with requiring educators to receive trauma-responsive training, it is essential that schools provide enough mental health professionals to support students. In the P20 Council Learning Renewal Guide, an educator explained how a lack of mental health support means that the school day is a waste of time, since students are not mentally engaged. Additionally, the misconception that counselors serve as emotional support is often what prevents the addition of mental health professionals. Counselors quite often only serve as post-secondary support for students. Next slide. Oh, not next slide, sorry.
Trauma-related training will allow educators to teach most effectively and be aware of possible challenges preventing students from maximizing their potential to learn. Offering mental health resources to address students' well-being will allow students to fully engage in a classroom setting and maximize their opportunities that schools have to offer. Especially in vulnerable student populations, trauma-informed mental health support is important for short-term and long-term student success. These trainings will allow educators to build a more culturally aware environment and provide a safe space for students to learn and grow. Next slide, please. When going about increasing the amount of mental health resources provided to students and faculty, it is essential you ensure that students and faculty are aware of the existence of these resources. For example, although the REACH program is still in its pilot phase, you'd think that people would know about this program, considering how helpful it will be to educators. However, most who aren't involved in the Illinois education system at a high level have no clue what the REACH program is. Think about it. A program whose intentions and goals are identical to the demands of nearly every teacher, a program that is completely free to educators, a program which, according to the presentation put together by Dr. Ayala, cost $10 million, little to no people know about. Did you know about the REACH program before seeing this slide? Regardless of how many psychologists your school provides, or how many mental health hotline links, meditation apps, and coping mechanisms you provide students, if students and educators don't know where to find this information, all of that is useless. It is your responsibility to ensure that social emotional learning community partnerships you create and the REACH program are known by the educators and students in the districts that you serve. When going about creating community partnerships with the SEL Community Partnership Grants, it is important to take into account what type of partnership will best serve the students and educators you represent. A good organization does not use a one-size-fits-all approach regarding the social emotional well-being of students. Many students are in need of mental health help. However, they all need different types of treatment and coping mechanisms. Students today face an insane amount of pressure from fulfilling high academic standards to participating in large amounts of extracurriculars. There are also students who need additional social emotional support, such as students experiencing homelessness or those in foster care. A one-size-fits-all approach will not work when ensuring all students from all backgrounds receive the help they need. Additionally, the organizations you choose to partner with should use evidence-based intervention. The term evidence-based intervention and evidence-based funding have been loosely thrown around lately, but what are they? Yes, it means to use evidence to support your actions, but what type of evidence? Student voice. Students' voice should serve as the evidence that you, along with organizations you choose to partner, use, not data reports. It's important that events like today aren't used just to check the box for the mandate that you must hear from students, but conversations like these must be taken into serious consideration when deciding how to spend federal dollars. Although training may increase proactive related costs, reactive behavior related spending will be reduced. This means that increasing mental health support in schools does not necessarily require a high financial demand, and it is possible to implement in both Title I and non-Title I schools. Implementing trauma-related training is also something teachers desire, thereby likely increasing teacher retention rates. The demand for social emotional support for students is continuing to grow. However, the tangible change that needs to occur is lacking. Majority of people agree that the mental health of students need to be given more attention, but thinking is not enough. You must use these ESSER funds to create actual changes in the everyday lives of students. Now I will turn it over to Eric and Leo from the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion subgroup.
Greetings, my name is Eric Ville Jr. and my pronouns are he, him, his, and I'm a rising senior at Willowbrook High School of DuPage County, District 88, as well as a member of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Framework subgroup. My motivation for this work is rooted in my belief that all people deserve an equitable education, as well as my long family history in working in the educational field. I am most proud of the amazing opportunities I have had this year to get to foster and have deep and authentic conversations with people from around our country. My future plans include graduating high school and then majoring in political science and education.
And hello, my name is Leo Kruger. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I will be a senior at Vandalia Community High School in the fall at Vandalia Community Unit School District 203. I am also a member of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Framework subgroup on this year. And I wanted to be on the council to have a voice for all of those who otherwise would not. And I also believe that since policy created by ISB is directly affecting students, our voices are pivotal in the decision-making process, and I wanted to be a huge part in that. I'm most proud of the people that we have met this year and the impact that we have left for them along the way for the betterment of the education system. My future plans include graduating high school and then majoring in international business and Spanish. And before Eric and I's presentation today, we are going to conduct a poll as well. And our question is, do students have the opportunity to give input into curriculum in your own districts?
All right. Thank you all for giving your input. We look at it, we hope after this presentation that this is something that you take back to your school districts and actually maybe further your work inside of taking back and getting student input inside of curriculum. So our main focus this year was to find a way to further the Illinois public education system in areas of equity. We want to focus on evolving our fellow peers' cultural competency while ensuring that classroom curriculum is reflective of the rich diversity of Illinois. Our recommendation to the Illinois State Board of Education this year were the following. An ethnic studies framework be integrated and inserted into all K-12 standards. Furthermore, we would like to see an ethnic studies class standard created and added into the newly proposed Illinois State Board of Education social science standards. We would want to see and hear student input and make sure resources are made using student voices and student perspectives.
And for clarification, we define ethnic studies as the culturally responsive and interdisciplinary study of ethnicity, indigeneity, and race, and that being with a centralization on the perspectives of people of color within and beyond the U.S. Ethnic studies is taught through an intersectional lens in which issues of ethnicity, indigeneity, and race are analyzed in relation to other aspects of oppression, such as sexuality, gender, language, nationality, socioeconomic class, social emotional well-being, and ability. And as you can see on our PowerPoint, all of our goals this year relate to ISB Strategic Goal 2.1.5. Our goal this year was to expand these historically represented groups, and we wanted to truly ask why these groups didn't feel represented within the state's curriculum. Our call to action was to directly dissect these standards and make sure that they do because that have not been present throughout history and that have since been covered by Eurocentric ideas of the current education system. According to the Smithsonian National Museum of African American History, less than 10% of class time is devoted to Black history. And according to the Southern Poverty Law Center, only 8% of high school seniors can identify slavery as a central cause of the Civil War. These statistics are a huge problem, and they show that we need to more focus on accomplishments of minority and ethnic groups. In your own districts, it would be extremely beneficial to look at your demographic makeup and potentially implement an ethnic studies course or some sort of teacher training based on those demographics for inclusion. Next slide, please.
For 8 months, our subgroup has researched the different approaches states across the country are currently taking in regards to ethnic studies. Looking directly at data and legislation released by the state of California, Connecticut, Indiana, Nevada, Oregon, Texas, Vermont, Virginia, and Washington, we have concluded that Illinois is behind. According to the National Center of Educational Statistics, there will be an increase by 19% in Black high school graduates and an increase by 30% in Hispanic and or Latinx graduates between 2012 to 2027 in Illinois. Ethnic studies implementation has been varied across the United States, including but not limited to the integration of ethnic studies through all subjects in K-12 education, a requirement of an ethnic studies course for high school graduation, or the offering of a high school elective ethnic studies course. However, in order for ethnic studies to be as effective as possible, ethnic studies education, beginning in early childhood and continuing throughout all students' public education, is imperative. In general, some students would even agree they learn more from social media outlets such as TikTok for ethnic and minority education, and this is a problem. In addition to the expertise of ISBE directors, the Student Advisory Council held a student convening in March in which we heard opinions and thoughts from dozens of students from across the state. The convening was very successful and helped influence our work. The students we met with at our convening helped further solidify our recommendation. Nearly all the students we talked to helped us reach two main conclusions. One, every student agreed that there was a lack of cultural responsiveness in their schools, and would like to see an increase. Most students across Illinois would not say that they felt represented in their classrooms. Number two, students across the state feel that the strong emphasis on representing diversity in public education would allow them to be more equipped to enter an increasingly global society, develop a stronger sense of identity, and become more successful students. These conclusions from our research led our group to beg a question. Why does the Illinois public education system prioritize learning about the Irish potato famine and quadratic formula over learning compassion and developing self-identity? In the words of Illinois Speaker of the House, Chris Welch, equity has to be the guiding principle.
And integrating an ethnic studies framework starting from elementary and continuing through high school would be a spur to improve the success of students in Illinois. This framework would help the students with their self-identity, which would help improve students' mental health and social and emotional well-being. Students would also understand cultural competency, and this would likely make students feel represented in the classroom and overall have self-efficacy. Having this framework would help with the students' post-high school achievement along with their success in other future endeavors. By allocating monetary resources given by ESSER III funds to ethnic and minority studies, the vulnerable students affected by the COVID-19 pandemic will succeed. Throughout the year, we have been tracking different pieces of legislation in regards to the inclusion of minority groups in education. We also heavily find the culturally responsive teaching and leading standards beneficial for all Illinois students and teachers. On top of those pieces of action, we also commented as a group on the ISBE social science standards revisions that were released for public comment. In these comments, we discussed the need for an ethnic studies framework and teacher resources. Based on our research, we believe that it is imperative that school districts and school officials take implementation of these pieces of legislation with the utmost of attention. Tracking student attendance and improving student engagement in distance education is another allowable activity with ESSER III funding. And with our recommendations, engagement of students can increase significantly. Looking ahead to the funds that will be received through ESSER III, another allowable activity is addressing learning loss among students, including low-income, children with disabilities, English learners, racial and ethnic minorities, students experiencing homelessness, children and youth in foster care. We need to make this a pivot point in using these funds as vulnerable groups need aid. With allocated ESSER III funds, a student-led training could be created in one's own district for the betterment of inclusion in the classroom, and moreover, to close the achievement gap brought forth by the pandemic.
We hope that our presentation today, you took something and you are able to implement it inside of your district to further include inclusivity inside a curriculum through the use of ESSER funds. This is not a one-size-fits-all recommendation. We are confident that each district will create and set a great standard and help students. ESSER funds are extremely beneficial to many districts, and we need to treat these funds with important decision-making and action. Thank you.
Thank you to all the students that presented today. At this point, we'd like to open it up for questions. Please enter any questions you have in the chat, and I'll go ahead and begin. There was a question, Theo and Araha, there was a question regarding tutoring. Do you have any insights as to whether group versus individual tutoring is better?
Yeah, so there were a couple of studies. One from our research said that the closer the tutor and tutee were in grade, the more problem solving the tutee may engage in during the session. And another one said that findings suggest that peer tutoring is an effective intervention regardless of dosage, grade level, or disability status. And just anecdotally, we think it's easier to connect with your tutors if they're the same age, which addresses other issues that have arisen during the pandemic, such as being able to connect with your tutor or being able to connect with others in general, because isolation has taken a toll on students. So there are benefits to peer tutoring that extend beyond just the learning itself.
Yeah, I definitely agree. When research seems to show that when tutoring groups get too big, students often encounter the same problems they would encounter in larger classes, such as they're afraid to speak up about exactly what they need and what they're having trouble with.
Right. Thank you. There's been a lot written about teacher burnout that was brought on by the pandemic, both teacher and student burnout. How or why would you recommend intensive tutoring considering the current context?
Well, one of the things we were learning in our research is that sometimes tutoring can take place during time that's already taken up by classes. It's more a way of increasing or making time be used more efficiently rather than expanding the time in total. When we, Araha and I and the rest of our group talked to students from across the state at a virtual convening, they were very much against extending the school day or year, but they were very much in favor of tutoring during the day. Like Araha was talking about, the CAVE program is what one school calls it, where students can access multiple different tutors in a certain location in the school before and during and after the school day. That hopefully in the ideal scenario, that wouldn't put more pressure on students. That would give them more flexibility to seek help. And hopefully for teachers too, again, in the situation where this is working as planned, teachers would be assisted by tutors so that they could focus on the needs of the class as a whole.
And ideally, if we could recruit more tutors, especially volunteer tutors, we can use those resources to be more intensive with lesser amounts of students. So if you're even just recruiting like high school level peer tutors, they can spend more time with individual peers and give them the attention that they need.
Great, thank you. Are there any other options aside from tutoring that you can think about or you think should be considered to close the achievement gap?
I think tutoring is what we were mainly focusing on in our presentation, but I think for one thing, both of the recommendations of the other groups that were speaking about social emotional learning and about diversity, equity, and inclusion and ethnic studies classes, those are very essential to closing the achievement gap for reasons, as I mentioned. We also mentioned briefly at the end of our presentation, community partnerships recommended by education leaders like John King. I think those are something that schools should really be looking into. Because obviously a big facet of the opportunity achievement gaps is inequality in housing and in healthcare and things like that. And schools can be a part of providing those resources that students need in order for them to be successful in learning.
And Theo did mention this towards the end, but intensive summer programs that they take place outside of the school year and are targeted towards reducing that achievement gap would also be very effective. We are in favor of that as well.
Thank you. Caitlin and Serena, can you tell us a little bit more about what you feel your schools could do better in regards to mental health?
For my school personally, I don't think we have that many mental health professionals. And one of the things I think contributes to students struggling with their mental health is the prioritization of academics over students' well-being. They don't outright say that, but sometimes you feel those pressures, and it seems that you're supposed to be just prioritizing your academics, and that's the number one thing, like that's your goal, right? To create this ideal transcript, and it feels like you should almost sacrifice anything to make sure you can have that good transcript. So I think those priorities need to be switched, because whole point of schools, or at least for me, high school, is to help us succeed in the future. And I can't succeed if I'm not, if I don't have a good mental health and social and emotional well-being. So I think schools need to prioritize that. And then in addition, a lot of people, like Caitlin was saying earlier, think that counselors equate to social and emotional health, but counselors, at least at my school, That's just for like college and career readiness. At my school, we meet with them freshman through junior year. We met with them like once a year for like 5 to 10 minutes just to talk about our classes, and that's it. So the psychologists we do have, it's mainly they think that those who need mental health help are those who have the bad grades, those who have a lot of absences, but people with, good academics still are struggling too, and that needs to be recognized.
Yeah, that situation's kind of similar to what my school is dealing with. And then also, I guess one thing is like the stigma of mental health has been like a huge like aspect of why like people don't like ask for help. And I feel like for my school, we only talk about mental health in like this 1 week that like they like prioritize mental health a lot. But I feel like if they're able to maybe do more like mental health conversations like in their classrooms, or like do like more presentations on why like you're not struggling alone, and there's many other people who are struggling at the same time as you are, and being able to have like a just like a mental health support is very necessary. And that's why we really recommended the REACH program, because then teachers are able to bring it up during classrooms and really talk about it with the students.
Thank you, Caitlin. On that note, are there any limitations to the REACH program? How many schools can be a part of it?
Right now, as I believe the REACH program is in its pilot phase, so they're only using certain schools, so it hasn't gone out yet to the public. But like I said before, once it is out, it's free to all educators. And so it's virtual, and it not only helps students, but helps educators too, because they'll be able to teach better, because when they are trauma informed, they can recognize students that are struggling. And then like we said earlier in our presentation, those students who are struggling, they can't focus in school. So often those classes are kind of pointless, and the information they learn, they can't retain it. So it'll help both students and teachers as well.
Thank you. I do have another question for Leo or Eric. Can you elaborate on what you feel equity means in public education?
So what I would say equity means in public education is making sure that all students have what is needed to succeed. I think a lot of times we get wrapped around equality instead of equity, because there is a difference. I can give you all the same things and say, this is what you get. Or I can go the extra step and make sure you have what you need to succeed. So it's making sure that you give students what's needed so they can all reach the mark that is assigned to them.
Yeah, and just kind of adding on to Eric, a common theme that I believe was present throughout all of our presentations was it's not a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. You have to look at each individual student and what their each individual needs are and address them that way. You don't have to give one sort of specific framework just for all students.
Thank you, Leo. On that note, you mentioned student voice. Can you elaborate a little bit more about how you see student voice being incorporated into choices around curriculum?
I think of it as, who are the people that's going to have to take the test about what you're teaching? Make sure you have students that are able to tell you, this is what we feel needs to be learned. This is what we feel like is lacking. I can talk from personal experience. At my school, we actually have a committee now, and when we look at new courses, when we review courses as already at our school, we look over them and we say, okay, this is great what we have, but how do we make sure something students like? So I've been a part of the process now to have 2 classes approved that started off from what students wanted. So I think having student voice inside the process of curriculum building and curriculum revision, I think is exactly the way to go, because you're teaching students what they want to know. And through that, you get students more energized, more invigorated to learn. Students are ready to be a part of it. And that's really where we come into that equity component, where everyone feels like they can see themselves inside of curriculum.
Thank you, Eric. Can you, or Theo, can you elaborate on how you feel technology has impacted equity or opportunities for students?
Yeah, so it is clear that students before the pandemic had not as much equal opportunity to technology. And as we have navigated our way through the pandemic and that those resources have become more available for students, there's still a gap between kids that might have to work to provide for their families or just other things like that that don't come along with just the technology aspect, but maybe the remote aspect as a whole.
Thank you. Well, I'd like to thank you all. I'm sure all of us want to give you a virtual applause for all of your hard work and your insightful information. I'd like to thank all participants for joining us today. Before we leave, if we could go on to the next slide. I'd like to just share a couple resources. We will be starting a peer-to-peer series for school and district leaders that we'd love for you to join us on. The first session will be June 17th. I also want to let you know about the National Center Summer Learning Collaborative. It's a professional learning community that's offered by the National Center. And all this information will be entered in the chat. You can click on those links. We welcome you to sign up for a Region 9 newsletter where you'll learn about many events such as this one, along with other information. If you have any research or content related questions, please ask a regional educational laboratory. That's a service available to you. And we ask that you please take an end of session survey. We hope that you enjoyed your time with us today and are interested in your feedback for future opportunities. Thank you, everyone.